for today's broadcast. Thank you all so much for joining us. APS webinars are brought to you as a service of the American Physical Society, connecting you with the expertise of individuals who can offer insight into physics careers, educational programs, and professional development for students, working physicists, and educators. Today's presentation features Dr. Eugenia Etkina and will be moderated by John Anderson. Eugenia will be sharing advice and strategies on becoming a physics teacher based on her many years of experience in teacher preparation and physics education research. After Eugenia finishes the presentation, the remainder of the program belongs to you for our question and answer session. Because of the number of people attending this webinar, we are only accepting text questions. So if you would like to ask a question at any time, please type it into the questions panel located on the right side of your screen, and we will answer all of your questions at the end of the webinar. We will do our best to cover all the questions that you submit, but we want to apologize if we are unable to cover everything. Finally, a link to the recording of today's presentation will be emailed to you after today's event, and you can also find information on the APS webpage for this webinar. Also, when you leave the webinar today, we encourage you to complete the survey so that APS webinars can improve its ability to provide you with these valuable services. And so with that, let's get started. Our moderator today is John Anderson, a physics teacher at Centennial High School in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. He is currently the teacher and TIR coordinator for the PhysTech project, the teacher representative on the PhysTech National Leadership Council, and was the teacher in residence at the University of Minnesota from 2007 to 2009. John is also a member of the Physics Force, an outreach team from the University of Minnesota, and a QuarkNet lead teacher. Previously, he worked as a researcher on the D0 detector at the Fermi Lab and was the curriculum coordinator for an Upward Bound Math and Science program for 13 years. And John, I guess I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Crystal. Today we have Eugenia Etkina joining us to talk about becoming a physics teacher. Dr. Eugenia Etkina has 13 years of teaching physics and astronomy in the middle school and high school from 1982 to 1995. After earning her PhD from Moscow State Pedagogical University in 1997, she went on to teach physics and physics methods courses at Rutgers University, eventually becoming a full professor in 2010. During this time, she created a unique and extensive program for physics teacher preparation and developed an inquiry-based physics learning system that simulates the processes of practicing physicists who construct and apply knowledge. She also developed a new approach to helping students acquire scientific abilities. At Rutgers, Eugenia conducts all physics teaching methods courses in the EDM physics preparation program and conducts professional development programs for in-service science teachers. Her main research interest lies in the cognitive aspects of learning physics and the acquisition and transfer of scientific abilities. And at this time, I'd like to invite Eugenia to begin her presentation. Eugenia, are you there?
Yes, I am switching to.
Okay.
Can you see my screen? John, is my screen there?
Yes, your screen is there.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, well then
Yep.
I'm
right.
going to. And so the title of my presentation today is Why Would You Want to Teach Physics? And for those who will be listening to me, I think it will be, okay, well, it looks like I cannot scroll. Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
There you
It's going now. So if you want to see what I look like, that's what I look like on the beautiful island of Dominica. I like hiking and a lot of outdoors activities, but this is not what the webinar is about. So I will still continue to talk about myself a little bit so you know who I am. As John said, I am from Moscow, Russia, or Soviet Union. When I was born, it was the Soviet Union. And I went to become a physics teacher to get a degree from the Moscow State Pedagogical University, which is like a Harvard of teacher preparation in the former Soviet Union and Russia. And then after I graduated from it, having both an undergraduate and a master's degree in physics and physics education, I started teaching in the Moscow Southwest High School. And Southwest means it's in the southwest part of Moscow. And there, students did not have to go to elementary and then middle school and high school. Everything was in one building. So everybody took physics for 5 years, and I would take a group of students when they were in 7th grade and teach them physics, not every day, 3, 4, 5 times, 4 times a week for 5 years. And I would also teach astronomy for those who were seniors. And then in 95, when I left Russia, I came to the physics department and worked there for a couple of years. And since 1997, I work at the Graduate School of Education running the physics teacher preparation program. Well, for some reason, my slides do not move when I'm in this mode. There's something wrong with the technology.
Did you, hi Eugenia?
Yes.
Did you click on the?
Yes,
okay.
I need to escape from this thing every time I want to move a slide. I don't know what's going on. I'll try to stay calm about it. So the next question is, why did I become a physics teacher? And it is kind of a personal thing. So first, my personal experience as a student was not very positive. In general, in the high school, and specifically in the sciences, what we were asked to do or told to do was kind of schooling work. We would read a book, we would do some experiments, we'll solve problems, but deep inside I knew that it wasn't really physics or chemistry we were doing. We were doing something else. And I really wanted to know what physics and chemistry and astronomy were about, mostly because of my personal experience as a daughter of a physicist. So I saw my dad working with telescopes and satellites and ships and studying surface waves and studying really complex things and being upset and frustrated that something didn't work out the way he predicted. And the problems were complex. I saw his graduate students coming to our apartment both Saturday and Sunday because he worked 7 days a week. And it was kind of a constant exploration combined with frustration and sometimes superb excitement. And there was nothing like that in my middle or high school science classroom. So I kind of wondered if this is even possible to create this excitement, and if it is possible to help students who are learning something learn like they are physicists or chemists. And that's why I decided to become a teacher. And all these years, has been almost 30 years, I've been trying to do what I dreamed of doing when I was a high school student myself. So when I started teaching, what was the most surprising thing? I thought it would be like, being a teacher, being in control of a classroom and showing and explaining. That wasn't the most exciting part. The most exciting part turned out to be the relationships with my students. It was really strange that these relationships were so much more than I ever expected, because I thought I would teach them physics. But in addition to that, they would come with me with their personal problems, with their uncertainties and questions, and situations with their parents, and what books to read, and what clothes to wear. So I kind of became, I can't say second mother to them, but somebody like an older friend, and at the same time, we were both together excited about physics. And so these unique relationships that go on even now. I have students who graduated in 1985, 87, 92, up to 95 when I left Russia, emailing me and asking me about my life, telling me about their student, their own children, and sharing their lives. And now some of them teach physics, and they say, Eugenia, remember in that course we did such and such. Do you still have the materials for it? Or what are you doing now? Can we use what you do? And so on and so forth. So 20 years passed since they graduated, and I continue to be their teacher. So in a way, I have a lot of children because I think that all my students are my children, and there's hundreds of them out there, and this is the best part. The next best part, what I would call time in class. I noticed since I started teaching, the very first lesson I taught, I still remember that lesson, it just flew by me in a second. I didn't notice how time, passed. And then the next lesson was exactly the same. And 2 years later, every lesson was too short. I never noticed how time passed when I was teaching. And then 10 years later, it was still the same thing. Now 30 years passed, still every lesson flies as just a second of my life. And what I know now, that this feeling when time flies happens only people are extremely happy. And this is called a state of flow. And the guy who came up with this term has a very, very complex name. And remember it, because if you Google it, you can find his books. His name is Csikszentmihalyi. And what he did, he studied different activities that people do and asked them to record the level of happiness. And it turns out there are certain activities that bring us into an extreme state of happiness. And there are certain characteristics of those activities that are true for all people. If you only satisfy those characteristics, then anything you do will make you very happy, and you will not notice how time passes. And if you study those characteristics, then you'll find out that teaching actually matches a lot of them. And for example, you focus on doing, not on the outcome. Whatever you're doing provides instant feedback. It is borderline challenging, not impossible, but not routine. And finally, you are seeing how you're getting better at this particular activity. So this is all true for teaching, and it was so true for me that I never noticed how time passed when I was teaching. And if I'm in a bad mood, just let me teach a class. I'll become a happy person. So now, why did I stop being a teacher after 13 years and became a teacher educator? You would say, Eugenia, if you're so happy teaching, then why did you stop being a teacher? First, I didn't, actually, because I still teach almost every day. But why don't I teach in a high school or middle school anymore? I would say it's all about impact. As a teacher, I calculated once that I can affect the lives of about 1,500 people on average. How did I make this calculation? Well, let's say on average, I will hold the same job for 20 years. A teacher interacts with about 75 students per year. These are all average numbers. So the total would be 1,500 people. Let's say I want those people to learn how to think on their own, and this is what scientists do, and that's why I became a teacher. Then I can change the way people think for 1,500 people. Sounds like a huge number, right? Just think about if you hold any other job, how many lives do you affect in your lifetime? 10, 20, maybe 100? As a teacher, you affect 1,500 people on average. You can go up to actually 4,000 people. However, if I'm a teacher educator and let's say I graduate 10 new teachers every year in physics, which is a huge number. So let's say 10 on average. I work for 20 years, right? And each of those teachers affects 1,500 people. So I'm getting to 300,000 people now. And if only 2 of those teachers become professors and do what I do, I can get up to 1 million. So just thinking that my ideas my thoughts, my approaches to learning physics can be spread to 1 million people. It's just mind-boggling, right? So what are the reasons to teach physics? You're sitting there thinking, you know, why should I care about becoming a teacher? And why should I care about being a physics teacher? Let's say you are a physics major. And if you teach physics, you can actually learn it. Turns out that even after we graduate with a master's or a PhD in physics, we still know very little. But when you teach, well, the teach is actually not such a good word. I would say when you're trying to help people learn, you will soon understand that a lot of your own thoughts about physics are very incomplete. And helping other people learn will help you learn physics. So that's a good thing, right? The next thing is that you do creative work every day, every minute, every second of your life. Not only do you need to prepare your lessons every day and plan your units and write your tests and make sure the experiments work and search for the new experiments and search for the new ideas and new materials, but during the lessons, things that you planned never go the way you planned, so you need to creatively respond to whatever is happening in your classroom. So it's never routine, never ever. And you would think, you know, teachers teach the same thing every year. Well, that is so not true. First, stuff changes. I mean, what we can use now for teaching physics is, you know, totally incomparable to what I started with 30 years ago. Even what I'm using this year is very different from what I used last year. Students change, parents change, standards change, everything changes, so it's never the same. Well, you, as we spoke already, you can affect a lot of lives. And because you're dealing with young people, you will not age. You can potentially experience emotional high every day. One of my students who became a physics teacher, when he was my student as a future physics teacher, in his previous life, he was an engineer. And what do I mean in his previous life? He had an engineering degree, and he started working as an engineer and then decided that he wasn't satisfied doing that. And so he came to the School of Education at Rutgers and applied for the physics teacher preparation program and a master's degree that comes with it. And this is how we met. And I asked him, why would you want to be a teacher? He said, you know, I was kind of bored in my job, so I want a challenge. And then 2 years passed, he graduated, he became a teacher, and he comes back in about, I would say, December. So it's been 3 months since he started teaching, and I said, how are you doing, Ari? And he said, you know, I'm doing great. In my 3 months of being a teacher, I had more happy days than in 10 years of being an engineer. Well, you have flexible hours. You have a long summer break. And until now, I would say you would have great benefits. This part is changing, but they will not be worse than the benefits of people working in the private sector, for sure. So, you'd say, what is that about? CERN, NASA, Fermilab, Monterey Bay. These are professional development opportunities for teachers. If you become a high school physics teacher, you have a chance to go to CERN or spend the summer at NASA or go and work at Fermilab. You can attend American Association of Physics Teacher meetings twice a year. You can do professional development with the Advanced Placement Institutes for Physics that are held in different places. So there's a lot of fun stuff to do. And most importantly, people who do this stuff, they're as crazy as you are. They're in love with physics. They enjoy being with children. They're amazingly creative. So hanging out with great people is such a perk of being a physics teacher. However, not everyone in the world chooses to be a physics teacher or to be a teacher to begin with. So what are the 5 reasons not to teach physics? Well, one reason not to become a teacher is you need to get up early every day. Some of the schools start their school day at 7:15. So you need to get up around 5. And if you're not used to it, it's very, very hard and draining. You come home, you're never done with work. You need to grade student work. You need to plan the lessons. You need to build something. You need to repair something. You need to go to Home Depot to buy something for tomorrow. So you have to work at home. And you need to learn all the time. You can never say, okay, I'm good now. You might be good today, but tomorrow you won't be if you stop learning. And you need to be able to cope with extreme stress. When I showed these slides to my husband, he said, you know what, why don't you remove the word extreme? I said, no, I won't, because the stress is extreme. Imagine you have been planning this lesson for 2 weeks. You thought about every second of it. You really prepared all your experiments. And you are so committed to having the best lesson of your life. And then you walk into the classroom, and it doesn't go well. And you don't know why. If you only knew why, it just doesn't. And you are so upset about it. You're almost in tears. And then the next lesson that is planned, it's the same lesson but with a different group of students, it goes beautifully. So, and that is like an emotional roller coaster, and I would call it an extreme stress. Well, if you are a physics major and you went to industry or to Wall Street, you probably would make a little more if compared to what you would make if you decide to be a teacher. So if you're thinking about money a lot, maybe being a physics teacher is not for you. So what does it take to become a good teacher? Well, I noticed I didn't say physics because this is true for all teachers. First is you have to be kind of an altruist, and altruism is selfless concerns for the being of others. So am I saying that you shouldn't be selfish? Well, it's probably true for everybody, but for teachers it's really very, very important. If the pain of others is more painful for you than your own, then you probably could be a teacher. Well, you also need to have passion, patience, and empathy. Not only towards students, but I would say a lot of it goes towards parents and administration. Because if you're not passionate about your subject, for example, imagine a silly experiment. You're on rollerblades, and while you're rolling past your blackboard or a board in your classroom, you throw the ball up. Amazingly, it comes back to your hands. It doesn't matter how high you throw it. If you throw it exactly vertically, it comes back to you. How does it know? Or you have a 10-kilogram ball in one hand and a 1 kilogram. Well, I guess you can't hold a 10 kilogram. It's like 1 kilogram and 10 grams. Really light thing. You drop them. If they're about the same size, boom, they reach the ground at the same time, which means Earth is pulling on them 100 times differently. How does Earth know to pull on a 1 kilogram ball 100 times stronger than on a 10-gram ball? Is that an exciting thing? Are you passionate about it? If this doesn't excite you, maybe being a physics teacher is not for you. Patience. You think about something for a long time, and you are structuring a lesson so everybody can understand. And then you see that most of your students don't even get the questions that you're asking. So you can get impatient. You say, you're not reading it. You are not paying attention. But it's not that they're not paying attention, it's that you're losing patience. And empathy. How do you empathize with somebody who in high school cannot add fractions? Well, you should. How do you empathize with somebody who comes to school without having breakfast? Do you know that your students didn't have breakfast at home? Do you know what happened last night? Do you know where the older brother is, that he's in jail? So if you cannot relate to your students, then, and you don't want to spend time learning about them, then you probably cannot be a teacher. Well, you also need to know physics. And knowing physics doesn't mean to know the equations. It's how physicists know what they know, including the history of it. Knowledge of your students Do you know what books they're reading, what shows they're watching, what games they're playing? And you would say, well, they're younger than me. I did it 5, 10 years ago. You need to stay in touch with their culture. And most importantly, I put it kind of at the end, but it is the key to being a successful teacher is how well can you plan your life? When do you do things? Do you know what you're going to do and how you're going to do it? And the lack of organizational skills, in my experience, is what prevents people from being successful teachers. And hard work. There are no weekends. You might take some time off. I'm not saying you should be working 24 hours a day, but you should be mentally prepared to work on the weekends. So here is kind of a complicated slide. I'm going to walk you through it that shows different ways to become a physics teacher. So it all depends on the state where you live. And I am using New Jersey, my state, as an example, and your state might be different. So in New Jersey, you need an undergraduate degree in physics or an equivalent, which means 30 credits in physics with 12 of them at 300-400 level. At some other states, an undergraduate degree in physics education is possible, and in New Jersey, there is no undergraduate degree in physics education. So after that, you can go on to grad school to get a master's degree in science or in physics education, and this master's degree can be coupled with a teaching certificate. This is called a traditional program. You can also skip the master's. A lot of universities give you a teaching certificate without the master's degree. So you need to know what your school does or the school where you want to go does. You can also have an undergraduate degree or equivalent in physics and get your teaching certificate through the alternate route program, Teach for America, for example, or New York Teaching Fellows. So what those programs do is that they place you in a school after a very short, intense summer preparation. You pass some content exam, a practice exam, and then you start teaching right away and take courses at night. For teaching in a private school, you actually don't need any certificates. So if you have a degree in physics, a lot of private schools will hire you right away. The minus of private school, there are many pluses of private schools, but one minus, so you consider it, is that the salaries of teachers in private schools on average are much smaller than the private school teacher salaries, at least in New Jersey. So the question is, why would you want a traditional path if you can have this alternate route path? So remember, the alternate route is when you start teaching with very, very short preparation in the summer. It's usually like a 4 or 6 week course. And traditional programs, they take from 1.5 years to 2 years. I will show you our program is 45 credits, 2 years plus the summer in between. So why would you want to spend money doing this if you can start teaching right away? Well, first, the traditional path gives you coursework and student teaching experiences before you resume the full responsibility of a teacher. So you're prepared. You probably imagine that teacher's life is very, very difficult. You need to plan your instruction. You need to enact the instruction. You need to grade your student work. You need to provide feedback. You need to plan the instruction for the next day. And if you do something today, it has to work for something that your students will learn 2 months from now. If they need to, 2 months from now, when they're learning a new topic, let's say energy, and for energy they need to understand force, right, to understand work, and they don't understand what force is because you didn't do it very well in dynamics, then you will lose them for energy. And you can have tons of examples of how different topics of physics are connected. So if you have no idea about those connections, if you don't know what ideas students have about those topics and what difficulties they might have and everything else that you learn in the courses, in the coursework during the traditional path, then it will be much more difficult. During traditional preparation, all pre-service teachers do student teaching. It's about 3, 4, 5 months when you teach, doing everything a regular teacher does, but you are not fully responsible for the students. So the teacher is sitting in the back of the classroom. He or she helps you plan the lessons, reflects on what you're doing, and so on and so forth. So you, through traditional path, you're better prepared to start. And you do student teaching before taking a job. That's the key here. The student teaching is something that prepares you for your independent teaching the most. So without it, you kind of, you have to swim across an English channel, and you've never went swimming before. You also have peers with whom you went through the program. And that means when you have some difficult issues or a question, when you start teaching, you have somebody to lean on. And you also have instructors who taught you. And if you stay in touch with them, this is like scaffolding for your teaching life. And you also have materials, lessons, and unit plans that you created or learned how to create during the program. So you come prepared. That's why the attrition rate of the traditionally prepared teachers is less than teachers that went through alternate route preparation. And I don't have a lot of experience with alternate route because we don't do it, but I had a couple of physics majors in the physics department at Rutgers who came to me, asked me about the program, and then decided to go alternate route because of the cost, and none of them actually remained in teaching, while the students who went through my program, almost all of them except 2 are still teaching. So what to do to decide which path to take? Let's say you're listening to this webinar and you're asking yourself, so what should I do? So check your state requirements for certification. Check the liberal arts requirements as well as major requirements. Check your state employment situation. Do schools hire alternate route people like in New Jersey? They don't. Does the salary depend on the education level? It means, will your master's pay back? Does the state support physics first movement? If it does, it means the state needs more teachers. Find the agencies and people who are responsible for teacher preparation. Explore your options. Think of what age group and what environment you would like to teach. And think and note also that a lot of people come to teaching after they already did something else. So demand for physics teachers is very high. So you will be able to find a job in almost every state, but check again whether you might need to move, because in some states there's less physics going on than in some other states. And I also want to introduce Jonathan Cheer to you. He's a first-year physics teacher, a former engineer who went through my program and started teaching in September of 2010. Being a physics teacher is great because every single day is different and every single year provides new challenges to face. So I didn't tell him about what I think is great about physics teaching. He's saying his opinion about it. What's even better is that you can actually see yourself getting better at being a physics teacher. Not many people see the successes in their own job. You can see the student understanding grow and improve as your own knowledge of teaching and your own skills grow. Being a physics teacher allows you to make a true difference in a student's life, especially in high school when they're deciding what they want to be, what they enjoy, what to study in college. You can make their decision lean in one direction or another. You can show them what true science is, the art of observation, questioning, and thinking. You can help them learn on their own so that they will always have a teacher at their disposal themselves. If a student is deciding whether to go into engineering or business perhaps, you can persuade them to go into engineering or even business. Either way, it's good because if you gave them a positive experience that helped them make their own decision to get into what they want, even if it isn't science, you have made a huge and wonderful difference in somebody's life. Being a physics teacher allows the students to change you. Too often when I was in industry, I felt like a machine, always doing the same thing, never growing. But here the students always surprise you, change you, make you better. However much you give to them, if you know how to look, you receive twice in return. My typical day starts with waking up around 5:30 in the morning, see I told you, depending on how many times I hit the snooze button. I get to school, make photocopies of quizzes and handouts that I need for the day, and then begin classes. During my prep period, if I'm well prepared and do not need to grade set up labs, I usually wander the school and visit other classrooms where I can find other cool teachers and students to hang out with. I then usually paint, draw, and keep my own creative spirit by just acting like a kid again. I also make myself available to other students who need help with class. Being a physics teacher is great because I know a ton about chemistry and other sciences and also about math. I've become a source of help for all students with any kind of work. They have come to respect me and trust me in such a short amount of time just because I'm willing to help them in my own spare time. This in turn makes them realize how valuable knowledge is and how it can help people. I have a total of 4 classes per day with 5 lab periods some days. They go mostly smoothly except from a 9th period class, which is the last period and also full of seniors. It's a very challenging class to teach, especially as a first-year teacher, but also never let the students get you down, as their decisions are their own. It is your job to provide the opportunity to learn and theirs to take it. When the class goes badly, I try to reflect on what I can change and correct. If it goes well, I give myself a pat on the back and I feel good about myself. Then I go home and grade and create new lessons for tomorrow. It's very difficult the first year, but I can already see it getting easier for me next year. So the next part of my presentation is about what a physics teacher should know and how Rutgers program is organized. But I'm wondering if we should probably stop here and I should take questions if there are questions. And if there are not too many questions, I can go on. John, what do you think?
Yep, we have several questions queued up here and ready to go, Eugenia.
Okay, well, let me take some questions, and then if I have time, I will talk more about the Rutgers program, which is a very unique program in the field of physics teacher preparation, but I can do without it, I guess.
Okay, and actually, one of the questions does address a topic similar to what the slide is titled as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get to that one in a little bit. I'll actually start with the first question that we received, and it's from someone who is she's a graduate student in physics working toward a PhD, and asked the question: is it crazy for me to entertain the idea of being a high school physics teacher? Will having a PhD not in education help or hurt me? Or parenthetically, will it generally be a waste of time with no real effect?
Well, in some states where the level of education is important, PhD is actually a very good place to start. Let's say we take New Jersey the way it is now, right? I don't know what is going to happen next year, but so far, a certain level of education places you at a certain salary level, and people with an undergraduate degree start at, let's say, $40,000 a year. With a master's degree, they start at 50. And these are hypothetical numbers. It all depends on the school district. You can start with a master's at 65, for example, depending on the school district and your previous experiences. And so you start a little higher with a PhD. So will it help you? It might help you if they are looking for, let's say they have a robotics team. They have AP physics. It might help. In some places it will hurt because if they have to choose between a person with an undergraduate in physics and high GPA and you, they'll need to pay you more, but you have no experience in teaching high school physics the same way as a person with an undergraduate. So it might hurt you. So I wouldn't, there's no answer yes or no to that, but I think that entertaining this question is a great idea because high school physics teaching will benefit a lot from people who know physics deeply. However, all these people, I think, should recognize that teaching physics, I wouldn't say teaching, no, teaching is a bad word. Helping people to learn physics is very different from doing physics. So you might have, or one might have, a PhD in physics and not become an excellent physics teacher because learning how to engage students in the meaningful exploration of physics is a different content domain. It's called pedagogical content knowledge. So even if you have a PhD in physics, you still need to learn how to teach physics and how to help students learn physics. And that's a totally, not totally different, a connected field, but not the same. I would say understanding of physics as a subject is a necessary condition for being a good teacher, but it's not sufficient. Did I answer the question? I hope I did.
Yeah, I think you did. I think you also find that you realize how much you do or don't know physics when you actually start to teach physics, too.
Right, right. That's right. Even if you have a PhD, you're usually familiar with a relatively narrow field of physics. So yes, you're right.
All right, the next question comes from someone who has 15 years of experience as a teacher's assistant in K-12 education, and now has gone back to school to get a teaching credential. She's a physics major, with a physics major with an astronomy minor, and will graduate in May 2011, and is seeking a general science credential so that she can teach middle school science. Her question is, what do you think is the most important scientific skill that she can impart to her students at this level?
That's actually an excellent question. I would say asking good questions. If her students can ask questions that can be answered using scientific approaches, that would be good. That, I think, would be number one. And number two is that they understand the difference between evidence and interpretation of evidence. And I wish all people could do it. That would save us so much trouble in all aspects of our life if we could separate the experience, or what physicists call evidence, from our interpretation of it. So she asked for one, but I gave two. Is that okay?
That's quite all right.
John, what do you think? Do you agree with me, or you have your own opinion about it?
No, I think you're right. I think, one of my goals as a teacher is always to try to make my students better problem solvers, and that includes the skills of critical thinking. It includes being able to analyze the situation, and I think if they can learn that, they can apply it in a lot of different situations. So that's I definitely agree with you, Eugenia.
Great. Next.
All right, next. I'm going to paraphrase this question a little bit, and I'm going to read into it what I think the student was or this person is asking. And I think they're asking you for a comparison, if you're aware of one, between students that select a traditional path versus, say, an alternative licensing path. Do you have any numbers in that area?
Oh, you mean total? I don't know. I think it depends on the state. Some states don't even have alternate route certification. So it would be very different. I can say that in New Jersey, most of the schools do not accept alternate route teachers unless they're totally desperate and it's the beginning of September and they don't have anybody. So a teacher with a university credential, who went through a traditional program is preferred. However, there are programs, and this is what the current assessment of schools of education programs is saying, they're not that great. So it all depends on the program. I cannot tell you the numbers. I would say in New Jersey, if you look at the physics teachers, I would say about maybe 60, 50 come from the traditional and 50 come from alternate route. But there's a very, very small number total, because most of people who end up teaching physics, as I showed on the slide, they're not certified to teach physics. This is kind of an emergency thing that is happening because there's not enough physics teachers. My personal opinion about it, when people ask me, should I go alternate route, I give them the following analogy. So imagine you're going for a brain surgery, and the brain surgeon is doing alternate route. And usually that's it. I don't say any more. Because I think that as a teacher, you are doing work much more delicate than a brain surgeon. And thinking that you can start doing it without any serious preparation is kind of strange. So that's why I don't know what the numbers are, and I'm sorry about it. And I know how politically incorrect is what I'm saying. But I firmly believe that for this very complex and non-trivial profession, people have to be trained very well and for a time that is much longer than currently the longest programs afford. Like I have students with an undergraduate degree for 2 years in the summer. And I tell you, if we had one more year, they would be much better teachers, because if they had 2 student teaching experiences instead of 1 and more time to reflect on it, they would be much more successful with their children, their students when they start. I'm just very passionate about it, as you can see. So sorry if the answer was longer than you expected.
No, thank you very much. All right, next question is this person is asking, wondering what your thoughts are about the shortages of women in science and engineering and what a teacher can do to help encourage girls to continue science education.
Oh, that's a great question. And I would say that I'll start with a little bit of history. A long time ago, when I was totally exasperated in my own classroom as a high school teacher, one afternoon, I was upset with something, and I said, okay, I am quitting. I'm giving up this thing. And I went to my principal, school principal, because we had, as I said, elementary, middle, and high school. And I went to him. He was a very wise man. He still is. He's still the principal of this school. And I said, what do you do? How do you educate people? And I was just ready to give up completely. And he said, you know, Eugenia, there are only 2 ways in which we can have an effect. And I said, what are those? And he said, word and personal example. So it's either with your words or with your personal example that you can change the lives of people. And I took it seriously. So if you want women to go into science and engineering and you are a woman, become a teacher and show that it's really cool being a physics teacher and you're enjoying life and you have all the pleasures that other professions give you, but you also have something else that, you know, everything that I said about teaching physics applies to both, you know, males and females. That's one thing, but the word is important too. I share with my students, you know, my personal life. When I was in my 3rd year of an undergraduate degree, in the 2nd year I got married, and then I had a child when I was 20 years old. So I went through my undergraduate with a child. He's now 31 years old, has a PhD, is happily married, and is a professor. And then when I was teaching, after 4 years of teaching, I got pregnant again. And I had my 2nd child, and I didn't stop teaching. We managed with babysitters and other help to do it. And my youngest son is now in the Peace Corps in Honduras, changing the world. So showing them that you can do, you know, you can be a physics teacher, you can be a mother, and you can be very successful mother. Being full-time employed, I think, is important. But most importantly, I think, is that physics is so cool as a subject. It is so emotional, and it is so physical in terms of exploration that everybody should be attracted to it. And if you're passionate, remember I mentioned passion. If you're passionate about it, and if you are compassionate with your students, girls will go into physics.
Well, and thank you. And to follow up on your last point, Eugenia, what what is your favorite area of physics to teach?
Oh.
I mean, they're all fun.
Yes, they're all fun. Well, I really love mechanics because I do it on rollerblades. And when I was a little girl, as many girls, I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be on stage. Now I am on stage when I teach mechanics, and I am my own piece of equipment. So I really love that. And I really like optics a lot. I guess I'm leaning towards the areas where you can see things. I mean, electricity is really nice, but a lot of it is mental in terms of mental modeling, and you are making up stuff as you go. And in mechanics, you can actually see what's happening, the same in optics. I mean, geometrical optics, so I love that part. I like fluids. I like fluids a lot. Yeah, that's about it. I don't like anything else. Everything else is boring. No, honestly, if you think about it, there is nothing boring. There's in every physics topic, there's some hidden beauty that the more you learn about it, the more you see this beauty. And I used to really hate statics, you know, torques and all this other kind of things. And then a person from the University of Washington came to give a talk, and she asked a question, and I wasn't quick to answer it in my mind, and I realized, oh, I still don't know it very well. And as I started looking into it, it became my favorite part. So I guess I love them all.
Can you talk a little bit about the Physics First movement?
Yes, yes. Well, I could, but at first I would say that the whole idea of a debate, should it be physics first or physics last, is kind of strange to me, because I come from the European system of education, where each science is every year, not every day. But the whole thought that you can learn physics in 1 year or chemistry in 1 year, it sounds kind of bizarre to people in Europe. So when I came here and I saw that physics, well, first, not everybody takes physics, which is awful. How can you live your life if you didn't take physics, right? But seriously, when I came, it was about 15%. Now it's about 22%. So 4 out of 5 students, or maybe 3 out of 5, never see physics in high school. That is not good. And secondly, even if you have a year of physics, it's so condensed and intense that you forget it in about a year. It's like losing weight. If you lose 10 pounds in 1 week, you gain them back in 1 week. If you lose them over 5 years, you gain them back in 5 years. So the more time you spend on a subject in terms of length, maybe less intense, the more you remember, because the brain has to recreate new connections again and again and again. So the whole idea that, physics first versus physics last or physics in the junior year is not the right framing of the debate. It should be, do we teach sciences 3 times a week but multiple sciences every year, or we teach them every day for 1 year each. So that's in general. In terms of having physics first and physics last, I would say I'd go for physics first, because physics in the senior year is a kiss of death, basically, for the students, because after the New Year's, senioritis starts, and you're losing them. So you only have, to be honest, half a year for the whole thing of intense concentration. In 9th grade, what I see my graduates who are teachers do, if you are good, you can do everything you want to do or you used to do in 11th grade, only your students are really passionate about it and they are not bored and they're interested and excited. And you would say, well, they don't know any math. Well, there are ways to help them learn math as they learn physics. So you can do almost everything that you would do in the last year if you teach physics like juniors or seniors. Juniors is not that bad. Seniors is really not the right place for physics. But then if you work with chemistry and biology teachers, they can actually use what your students learn to teach chemistry and biology, because physics is the foundation for both, and for astronomy, by the way. So I would say I would go for physics first, but very, very carefully, with an expectation that it will not be physics last. So it will be just the beginning. And the way the new APB course is structured, it's a 2-year course. And everybody takes, you don't need any prerequisite to take the first Advanced Placement Physics course, B. You can take it as your first course, and then you can take the second one. And if all students opt to take 2, not only will they get college credit, but they will have 2 years of physics. Did I answer the question? What do you think, John?
I think you did. Thank you. Yes, thank you. We have time actually for one more quick question. And what I'd like to ask her is pass on to you is the following. Is there funding available to assist with tuition for getting your certification in physics education? So are
yes.
you aware of any particular?
Yes, yes. Well, it depends on where you are, in what state and what institution you want to go to. In some places, if there's no scholarship fund available, then you can have all your tuition covered, but you need to promise that you're going to teach for a certain number of years in a certain type of school district. There are some states that have this loan forgiveness program if you teach for a certain number of years. There's also, in some states, there's state funding available. So depending on where you are, you need to explore these funding opportunities, and specifically at your institution if they have a noise scholarship fund or some other kinds of scholarships. But if your institution has noise and you do not mind teaching in high needs district for 3 years after you graduate, if you're really, really serious about being a teacher, you can have all your expenses paid and even get some money for professional development after that. But if you do not teach there for 3 years, you'll need to pay the money back. So that's the difficult part.
All right, well, very good.
Great.
That's, I think, all we have time for right now. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening. And I'm kind of sad that I didn't go through the rest of the slides, but if you ever decide what should a physics teacher know, send me an email, and I will send you the rest of the slides, or send you the information about the Rutgers Physics Teacher Preparation Program, which is the best program in the universe.
Mm-hmm. Great. Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you, Eugenia, and thank you, John, for that really great discussion. And I agree. I feel like it could have gone on for a little while longer. We do apologize to those who've been listening, didn't get to your questions. I welcome you to, you can, as Eugenia said, contact her directly. You can also send questions to webinars@aps.org, and we'll make sure to put you in touch with her. We will also pass along your questions to Eugenia so that she'll have them and can comment. I also want to remind everybody that we have another webinar coming up in April, Making a Difference with Your Physics Degree, with Frank Levinson, who is a venture capitalist who is a physicist also. So, sorry, venture philanthropist. And if you'd like to suggest future topics for any other APS webinars, please send an email to webinars@aps.org. Also remember, as you exit, to take our short survey, and you will also be receiving an email from us in about 24 hours with a link to the recording of today's presentation. And this wraps up today's event. We hope that you will join us next time. Have a great day. Okay, thanks, John and Eugenia.
Yes, so
Right,
do we just hang up now, or what?
Yeah, you're welcome to go.
Can you still see my screen?
No, I changed it.
Oh, you changed it? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
It
was very exciting. It's really, we're not on air anymore, right?
Well, yes.
Yes, we are.
So, We are, I mean,
We are on
yes,
air?
but
it is a very interesting.
You are. So if anyone's still here and you would like to continue and just say a couple words about the Rutgers program, you're welcome to.
Oh, you sure? Oh,
Yeah.
wait a second. Are we sharing the screen? Because I closed the thing. I can open it back to just show. I don't know. How do we know if people are staying?
There are some folks still here.
Right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I can just scroll and show them what the Rutgers program is like.
Okay.
Okay. So in the Rutgers program,
Eugenia, have you said show my screen yet?
Yeah, show my screen.
Oh, there you go. Great.
You can see it? Okay. So in the Rutgers Teacher Preparation Program, it is a program that gives you a master's degree and a certificate. It goes for 2 years. And what is interesting here, you can see the courses in the red frame. These are courses that teach you how to teach physics. And you can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 courses in which you learn how to teach physics. And they allow you to go through the high school curriculum and analyze what students learn and how they learn from different angles. And in addition to that, doing it again, I cannot move the next slide. Let's see. For some reason, this is what is happening. Yes. Students who take these courses, they're in blue now, they also do a lot of teaching. While in the program, they teach labs and recitations and report physics courses in undergraduate physics courses, and they do student teaching. But after graduation, we all stay together. It's like a learning community that extends forever. And I had some pictures of my students. This is them solving a problem and teaching lessons and preparing lessons. And this shows what the community is after graduation. We go hiking together. We do magic. This is Rutgers Day Physics Magic Show. So it is like a family. And then if you have this family, you don't quit because the family supports you. And the quitting rate of my graduates is very, very low. And so email me. This is my email. If you have any questions, and I'll provide you with the information or answers to your questions or whatever. Well, that's it now.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks
I
again,
don't know
Eugenia. And yeah, we encourage anyone who has any questions to please contact Eugenia or us at webinars@aps.org.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.